What's happening, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of Phightin Words. Anthony SanFilippo is here. He's on the way to Pittsburgh, traveling across the state of Pennsylvania, but he's here, no less. And I'm Bob Wankel, and we're going to talk about a pretty bad stretch of baseball here by the Phillies today. And there's a lot of different ways we could go about it. I was dropping my kids off, and I have about an hour round trip to do that, to get them to the in-laws and then get back. And I was thinking about the show, and I'm like, do we want to go nuclear? Do we want to slam the panic button? Do we want to rip every player on this team to shreds? Or do we want to be a little bit more thoughtful and nuanced, I guess, in our discussion? And I think I'm going to land somewhere between. I think that's where I've kind of landed today. You and I had a feisty text message exchange on Wednesday night, where you criticized me for being overly critical of this team. And I want to talk about that. I want to explore that with you in a therapeutic way today. So
that's good.
Anthony, this isn't great right now. I certainly don't want to overreact to what we're watching. It feels like it's been going on for 3 weeks, but in all reality, it's just 2 series of poor baseball. And I think it's important to kind of give that context. What is your initial observation as we enter this conversation today about the Phillies against the Blue Jays and where they're at right now?
Well, I think that, as the season goes, I mean, look, we had this back in April, right? I mean, they had the same stretch back in April where they lost 5 in a row and they fell to 500 and everybody was ready to push the panic button then. And then, of course, they righted the ship over the next 30 games, and it was like, okay, see, it was just a blip in the radar, and now you're back at it again. And these things happen in a baseball season. That said, I don't want to make it sound like I'm just dismissing the way they're playing right now as an ebb and flow, because I think that there is more to it than that. And we could look at individual players and identify, where there's real concern right now and where there are real problems right now. You want to go west, huh? Sorry, my chauffeur was just about to go the wrong direction on the turnpike, and we would have been heading to New Jersey instead of to Pittsburgh. So
it's a very special episode. Anthony gets divorced. Live stream.
Yes, but what I was saying was, I do think that there are things that we can look at based on these last 2 series that maybe cropped up a little bit more than they did even back in April. And then you got to sit there and go, okay, how do you fix this? How does this get rectified? And if it can't, well, then is it a problem for this team going forward? And I think that is a fair way to criticize the Phillies, not sit there and go, oh my God, they look terrible against 2 teams they can't win in October. I hate that narrative. But
right.
I do think that there is value to looking with a little bit more nuance and context at what's not going well and why.
So on Monday, I talked a little bit about my feeling, which is that this team is in an okay position in terms of making the postseason. There is a lot to like about this team, namely the starting rotation. But my overall thought is that it's going to get to the deadline and they're going to have to do multiple things. And if they don't, then I can't take this team seriously as a championship contender come August, come September, going into October. So what I'd like to see them do is do enough to put themselves in that position to make the moves and then maybe enter that conversation as a championship contender. So I can't freak out when I see the Phillies lose 2 out of 3 to the Blue Jays and say, well, they're not hitting, or there's inconsistencies in the lineup, or this bullpen stinks. Like, we all know that. And I think that there's enough here that you just want the template of a contender. But if they don't make those moves later this summer, then I cannot. Like, this team as currently constructed, to me, it's not, oh, they can't win in October, like, because they had a bad series. I don't think they can win in October because I don't think they can win in October. I don't think this team's good enough as is to be that team. I'm not saying that it's a waste of time. I'm not saying they're an 83-win team or anything like that, but I just don't think there's enough here in terms of playing postseason baseball to do it. That's where I'm at in this moment. That's where I was at as they were ripping apart the Rockies and the A's 10 days ago, 14 days ago.
Yeah, no, and I think that that's a fair assessment. The one thing I think that is going to be real interesting um, next month as we're approaching the deadline and getting to the deadline is I really feel like the Phillies will address issues that they have, but I fear that they're going to address them in a way that won't be acceptable enough for fans. And what I mean by that is,
Acceptable enough for fans or acceptable enough for the end game, which is to actually compete.
well, see, that's the thing. It depends on how you look at it, right? And everybody might have a different perspective on that. Like I was having this conversation with a friend of mine today, a Philly cop, as a matter of fact, this morning. We were going back and forth about, he's a huge Phillies fan, and he was messaging me. He's like, they got to do this, they got to do that, and I'm like, yeah, okay. I said, but if your trade deadline acquisitions are two lesser named relievers, right? And I say this, and these are the two names I threw at him. I'm not saying that I know anything that the Phillies are going after these guys or anything like that, but these are probably two relievers who will be available, who are at the end of their contracts and could be there. Dennis Santana, who we're going to see this weekend in Pittsburgh probably, and Andrew Kitteridge, who's a 35-year-old veteran who just came off of an injury with Tampa, but had a really good season with St. Louis last year. Let's just say those two guys are your two bullpen additions, right? Are you thrilled by that? Are you excited by that? You may not be, but you may also be able to look at it from a more baseball perspective and say, that's really going to help this bullpen because you add a couple starters into the bullpen mix too, and now all of a sudden that bullpen looks pretty good, right? So,
Right.
the names may not be sexy, but it still might get the job done. I say the same thing with an outfielder or a batter, whoever that you're going to add, whether it's an outfielder or another position. You add a player, it might not be the biggest name that's out there that I know everybody wants them to go get a big name, big power bat. Like they might not be able to get that just because it's not available, not because they don't want to do it. It just might not be available. So the name that they bring in might not blow you away, but it could be very well be a good fit. And so that when you put it all together, and we won't know what it is until after that deadline, there's a real possibility that they went out and got 2 to 3 players who none of them excite you individually, but as they fit into the construction of the team, may well be the right way to go.
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible. I know that everybody's name hunting, star hunting,
Yes.
wants to feel like, hey, look, they're showing this team that's been, on the brink here the last couple of years, knocking on the door, that we're going to go out and we're going to make the move and we're going to power you guys, give you that energy, that jolt, that vote of confidence that this is a team that can get it done. I don't know how the market's going to materialize. I don't know how many teams are going to be legitimate sellers. I don't know what the price point will be. I don't know the Phillies' willingness to part with their more meaningful prospects. There is so much to be determined here. And I guess we'll see how it goes, but I think we can all agree that there are multiple things that they will need to address, or this is not going to end well. And I want to get to those things, and I want to talk about some of the specific areas of concern that we're experiencing in this moment here in a few moments. But let's start now with Jesus Luzardo. And the conversation after the start against the Brewers was, well, he's been great for this team. This was a hideous start. I feel sorry for this guy because to some extent his season is sort of blown up in one afternoon. Like the numbers went from sterling to just average, and now they look bad relative to the rest of the league. I mean, he is by definition in several categories right now, statistically below average. And let's pull this out right off the start here. He is still this morning 5th in wins above replacement for all qualified National League starting pitchers. There's 36 of them. He's 5th. He's 13 of 71 across the entire sport. So I think that we can all take a deep breath here and say that Jesus Luzardo's addition to this team to this point, including the last 2 starts, has still been a massive win for the Phillies. I mean, it has been a slam dunk, even with what we've seen on Saturday and yesterday. There's still things that you lean into that you're like, all right, this looks okay. Like he's top 5 in the National League in strikeouts per 9. Like there's stuff to latch onto here. But that being said, when you look at the last two starts now, 5 2/3 innings pitched, 21 hits allowed, 20 earned runs, 3 homers, 5 walks, and only 6 strikeouts. He's not missing bats. The fastball is getting pummeled, and we can talk about that in a moment. You look up this morning, opponents are hitting 280 against him this season. That's the 4th worst of any qualified starting pitcher in baseball. He has the 6th highest whip, 1.44, and his 4.46 ERA is the 14th worst. It's like, and it happened in the snap of a finger in June. You know, it's not like these numbers tilt like this when you're making your 2nd or 3rd start of the season in April, in the 2nd week of April, not when you get to June. So to see that type of decline that quickly, it just speaks to how, frankly, how historically atrocious his last 2 starts have been. So I bring it to you now and say, what level of concern do we have? Like, I think we've closed the door on, like, all-star Jesus Luzardo. Like, sorry, like, it just statistically isn't going to work out. But what are we getting out of this guy? Have we already seen the best? Is the innings, limit, not limit, but the workload already surpassing what he's done in most previous seasons? How much of a concern is that? Are they going to fix this? What are you seeing right now?
So I have a couple of things I want to address on this. And I'll be honest with you, I am less concerned than I think most people are with Luzardo. In the sense of this, I never thought Luzardo was what he was over the first 11 starts. I thought that he was pitching probably above his head a bit, not a lot, but a bit. I mean, he's not the best pitcher in the National League, and that's how he was pitching for his first 11 starts. I think he's more of a low 3s ERA kind of pitcher. Who throws the ball hard, will get a bunch of strikeouts, and he's going to keep you in every game. And like that's the kind of guy that I thought you're getting. I thought you were getting in Luzardo a lot of what you got out of Christopher Sanchez last year. Like that's the kind of pitcher that I thought you were getting with Luzardo. And there's nothing wrong with that. And ultimately, if that's what he is, it's still a slam dunk win for the Phillies going forward. So yes, was he due for some regression? He certainly was. Not to this historic extent. And but to put this in perspective, he is the first pitcher in the history of Major League Baseball to allow 20 earned runs in 5 2/3 innings. It doesn't matter if it's 1 game or over 2 games or over 3, or whatever, however many games. First pitcher to ever allow that much. So that's historically bad. And you were right that his fastball is getting pummeled. And I think what has happened is, and you don't want to. Everybody always, maybe he's tipping. Well, nobody knows.
He's not. I don't think that's the concern at all.
Right, but I would say that it's a situation where he got into too much of a pattern, and the pattern is a lot of fastballs for strikes early in the count, and in the last 2 starts, actually the last 3 starts ago, but in the last couple starts. Teams are just attacking him at the beginning of the count. They're going right after him, and that's part of the problem. So I look at that and say, okay, can that be adjusted? Can they fix that? I think they can. And then I want to throw one more thing at you. We've talked about Lance Brodzowski on this program before, actually, about Luzardo. As a matter of fact, about a month ago or so, I wrote that story where I talked to Luzardo about the changes that he made, adding that sweeper, all those things. Well, Brodzowski put something out today. If anybody doesn't know, Lance Brodzowski, he has his own Substack, but he's worked for Driveline. He's worked with Caleb Cotham. So this guy's got some real pitching knowledge. And I just want to read what he wrote about Jesus Luzardo. Came out this morning, and he said he's cut back his 4-seamer from 40% to 27% in these past 2 starts, and more than doubled his sinker usage to 15%. Pulling back the 4-seamer feels like an admission that something is wrong. When a pitcher has a run this bad, my brain goes to tipping or injuries. I find tipping incredibly difficult to catch and injuries futile to speculate. So my guess is it's mechanics. From what I can tell, both Luzardo's 4-seamer and sinker have been located more on the inner third of the plate to right-handed hitters in these 2 miserable outings compared to his prior 11. Perhaps this suggests something is off in his delivery. Maybe that is causing him to pull pitches to his glove side, and hitters are hunting those two pitches and not missing. Why this would result in such an abysmal 2-outing stretch, I'm uncertain. My guess is we'll hear Caleb Cotham, I did something wrong with my mechanics, and we think we fixed it. And I'm more confident with that he's a sub four ERA guy, because it just feels like too much of an anomaly.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's fair, and I think that that's right. So maybe that's why I'm not as concerned about Luzardo, although I admit these two starts have been the worst thing I've ever seen a pitcher do. Starting pitching wise. I mean, I've never seen two back-to-back horrible starts like that by a pitcher.
Yeah, I think it would be tough to speculate about tipping. It's been so bad that it feels like there has to be some type of explanation. I don't get the sense that that's what we're going to see here, and the Phillies did not really entertain that as a possibility, quite honestly. I think that their dismissal of that is pretty revealing. I don't think he's hurt. You look at the spin rates, you look at the velocity, there's not really much that jumps out at you that would indicate an injury, unless he's, it's a subtle overcompensation that has a mechanical impact. But I don't think that that's really the primary concern at the moment. I will tell you this, it does make some sense that he's gotten away from the fastball. You look at pitching run value, MLB StatCast, I mean, it's -5 is the fastball, which is bottom 15% of the league. His fastball has been to his detriment overall. And I mean, look, opponents are hitting .333 against his fastball this season, with a .505 slugging percentage and a .524 expected slugging percentage. That is not good. And relative to the rest of the league, it's in the bottom 20th percentile. So opponents here, and obviously these numbers are a little bit juiced up over the last two games, but opponents are sitting on the fastball. It does not appear to have as much impact. There's, despite the velocity being up, I don't think that it is moving quite the same way. And I think that that's what you're seeing a little bit right now. I don't know that I'm overall terribly concerned about him. I think the idea that he is a 1B in a rotation, maybe I got a little carried away with the upside of him, but I still think that he slots in as a number 3 type guy and gives you that type of production from here on out. Maybe it takes another start or two before he really gets rolling again, but I don't think that we're going to see full regression. This guy's borderline unusable. He's killing them. He's crushing their bullpen every fifth day. I don't think we're headed towards that. So I'm not there in terms of my overall panic with him. And I also trust the pitching coach. I think that people talk about the hitting coach here. They talk about Rob a lot. One thing that you don't hear, even when pitchers aren't going well, is Caleb Cotham. This guy, we gotta change the pitching coach. We gotta look elsewhere. I think that there's enough trust and enough sample here that you believe that this guy will identify what the fix is, and they'll go out and execute it. And maybe it doesn't happen 5 days from now, but I think in time, there's enough there that you trust in that guy to help him figure it out.
Yeah, and I mean, he's done it with many pitchers in the past. And, you got to give the Phillies a lot of credit over the time that Cotham's been here. Their strength has been their pitching. And there's a reason for that. And, as guys change, like characters come in and out of this, baseball drama, the one consistent character is the pitching coach. And he's able to successfully manage most of the guys that they bring in here. So, you got to give him a lot of credit. And I think that he will be the guy that identifies what's wrong with Luzardo, and they'll attack it. They'll start attacking hitters a little bit differently with him. Maybe he starts to pitch a little bit backwards, get hitters off balance a little bit, get them guessing a little bit more. I read something this morning. Matt Gelb was up in Toronto, and he interviewed Luzardo, and Luzardo was talking about the one changeup he threw to Ernie Clement that was down below the zone, was a good pitch, and Clement got that and drove it for a double into the gap in left center field. And it's like, even my good pitches they're hitting, right? And so and there was nothing wrong with the speed of the pitch or the location of the pitch. It was just they were on it. And so maybe that's him admitting that he had become a little bit too predictable in what he was going to throw in certain spots. And so maybe that changes things for him going forward. Like I said earlier, I'm not yet worried about it. I look at this and say this is a good pitcher who's going through it and going through it in a bad way for a couple starts. But I do think that with his track record and also with the track record of the pitching coach, that they will figure this out and he'll get back to being exactly what you just said, a good 2-3 in this rotation.
All right, now that we've gotten this out of the way, because like this is boring, right? Like trying to go through like this guy's like mechanics and like what are we really seeing here? You know how they say familiarity breeds contempt? So I think that really applies to the Phillies in a general sense. I truly do. Nobody's really that angry at Jesus Luzardo. Nobody's saying that this guy stinks or that this guy's a bum. I mean, he's had 2 just wretched starts. He's buried the team from the jump. He's given them no chance to win. But people aren't calling the radio station saying that Jesus Luzardo stinks. Let's make him a bullpen option. When Nola comes back, let's bounce him out of here. Like, we're not doing that with this guy. Like, so I think that everybody's like in a wait and see mode with Jesus Luzardo. He's also a fresh face. He's a new character. So I think that there's a little bit more forgiveness when things go south. The same can't be said for pretty much anybody else on this team. And so now it's time to jump into that. You go back and look at this offense from the finale of the Braves series through what we witnessed yesterday, and it's been pretty bad. They score 3 runs in the finale against the Braves. They scored 2 runs on Friday night against Milwaukee. They have 2 runs into the 9th inning in that shellacking to the Brewers on Saturday. They come back and only score 2 Sunday. They explode Tuesday night in the 1st inning, then don't do anything else, and then they go 1-1 over the final 2 games of the Blue Jays. They have not hit at all over the last week. I mean, it has been bad, save for the 1 inning at the start of the series against the Blue Jays. And we've talked about each of these different players, and we've isolated them, and we've talked about what's wrong, what's good, but what could be better. And we've done that dance. You know where I've really landed with the Phillies in a general sense, and it ties back into what I said earlier? Good enough to make the playoffs, probably in my estimation, not good enough to win a World Series as currently constructed. What I find myself doing lately is picking apart every single one of these players and really highlighting their faults and what they're not good at. And I just feel like it's less about the individual and it's more about how they all fit together. So, like, let's look at Alec Boehm, for instance. Dreadful month of April. He has gotten up off the mat. He has the 4-hit game on Tuesday night. He's been swinging the bat well for about 4 or 5 weeks now. I don't think that Alec Boehm is a bad hitter. I just don't think that Alec Boehm works in this lineup because of the deficiencies. I think that you can get away with JT Realmuto's declining offense in theory because of what he brings in terms of leadership and what he brings defensively. But JT Realmuto's bat was designed to be a middle-of-the-order bat on this team, so it's not working. Bryson Stott. I don't think that Bryson Stott's a bad baseball player. He certainly can pick it at second base. But Bryson Stott does not work on this team because he's being asked to be a leadoff hitter, and he has a .256 on-base percentage over his last 30 games. It's not that Alec Boehm stinks. It's not that JT Realmuto stinks. It's not that Bryson Stott stinks. It's that together they don't have enough. The way that it is organized, the way that it is constructed, it just doesn't fit. Like, you need Alec Boehm to be a 45 doubles guy and a 20 homer guy on this team now. Like, or you need JT Realmuto to be the offensive player that he was in 2021. Like, it's just lacking. And I think that the individual struggles and shortcomings of each of these players get amplified where you want to say, this guy sucks, because the fit is not good enough. It doesn't work together right now. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and that's a good way of putting it, Bob, because I don't think individually these players stink. I think what this really shows is how much this lineup is buoyed by 2 guys, Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber. And when you look at this stretch that you just talked about, part of it was played without Harper, and part of it was played with Schwarber not being the player that he was at the beginning of the season. Like he's struggled a little bit the last 5 years, let's just say, right? So I would say that it just shows that as they go, so goes the offense. And so when you take one of those components out of the mix, it really shows the deficiencies in the lineup. Trey Turner has done a fine job in the role that he's being asked to play. And so I don't have criticism of Turner from an offensive perspective. I think that the three of them in your lineup as they're going, I think is pretty good. But you need complementary offense. And the Phillies are not getting enough complementary offense. And that's where the issue really lies. And any good team, of course, they're going to rely on their star players, but they aren't going to be ultimately successful unless the complementary offense is there. And the Phillies have not gotten any kind of consistency with their complementary offense. And you just pointed it out, right? Like, and I say this, like, I look at Bryson Stott, and I agree with you. I would not make a change. I would not take Bryson Stott off of second base. I think he's a fantastic defensive second baseman. And I would tell you that if Bryson Stott was batting 8th or 9th in my lineup every day, he's perfect. He's perfect for this lineup. And
I do think it needs to be said, though, like, some of it does go on Bryson Stott for not taking the next step. Like we talked about, look, last year was a down year. There were some injury. And to hit, like, one thing I want to say is Bryson Stott didn't come out and make a bunch of excuses for himself about last season.
Right.
You know, this idea was floated that he was battling something. And then we all kind of took that, I think, as a fan base and as a media and said, like, okay, well, there's an explanation as to why he will take the next step. I mean, on this show at the beginning of the year, you basically were like, yeah, I expect him to really have a big year and show everybody what he's capable of doing. And he's basically been the exact same player, more or less. So it is on Bryson Stott for not being what we hoped he'd be or what he has shown in small doses. So, like, the player is accountable or should be held accountable for that. However, at some point, those flaws or those shortcomings are being amplified because they're being asked to do something which they have not demonstrated they're capable of doing. And in the case of Bryson Stott, it's hitting leadoff. Like, he should not be hitting leadoff. They don't have another obvious solution. It's not a good fit. So now you're killing Stott. But yeah, like, if he's hitting 8th or 9th in this lineup, you probably aren't. You're like, hey, he's a quality second baseman, really good defender, has a good feel for moments. He's come up with some big hits in his career. We're cool with that. But we're in this thing where you're like hoping that he's this all-star level player, and he isn't, or he has not shown that he is.
Yeah, no, and that's fine. And well, it's fine in the sense that you need to recognize it. And I think that the Phillies will ultimately recognize it, right? I don't think that this experiment is going to continue much longer with Bryson Stott at the top of the lineup. I think that they realize he is what he is, and he's a good player for this team and in this lineup, just not where that they've had him. So in this losing streak,
he is 3 for his last 27. He's hitting 111 with a 200 on base percentage. Yeah. I mean, that's dreadful. And that's why I zoomed out and said, here he is over the last 30 games. So let's go back to the first week of May and not just sit here and squat on an especially awful stretch. But I mean, he's been pretty bad, certainly below average for quite a while now.
Yeah, no. And if you look at his numbers as a leadoff hitter in the, I think it's about 40 games now. Obviously I can't look it up. I'm in the car. But I think it's about 40 games. His numbers as a leadoff hitter have been subpar, like not even like passable. And so, if the notion is we need somebody to get on base for the big bats behind him to drive him in, well, that has been a failure. In blunt terms.
I do have the numbers here. He's hitting 234 out of the leadoff spot with a 287 on base percentage, a 622 OPS. I mean, that's not even close to good enough.
No,
it's
not.
Desi Relaford bad.
and that's the thing. Like, I mean, you can't keep doing that. You can't keep batting that guy in that spot if that's the production you're going to get. I don't care what the outcome has been. Right. I know the Phillies record with him as a leadoff hitter is pretty good. You can't just look at it from that 1,000-foot view and say everything's fine. Like, you have to recognize we need to make a change there, and the change may well be to just let Turner lead off all the time. He's done it very well against left-handed pitching. He's been good for them. So why not just put him back into that role full time? That's got to be. I mean, unless you're moving Schwarber back there, we know Harper won't lead off. So unless you're moving Schwarber back there, I mean, that's really the only other option you have. And I think the Phillies might need to start considering it. And I wouldn't be surprised, Bob, if when I get to PNC Park today and they put that lineup out, that it's going to be a little bit different. I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case. Yeah,
and look, I mean, Stott's the guy that we're all kind of zeroed in on right now. Leadoff hitter, not getting it done. Offense has no life. It feels like it kind of starts there. He's the most obvious player to point to in this moment. They've got to figure something out, and he has to be better. I mean, look, we can sit here and say, like, if he's hitting your 8th or 9th, you feel better about him, and that's absolutely true. But beyond that, he has to be better than he's been for the last month. I don't think that he's an all-star. Like, I don't think he's going to be an all-star. He hasn't shown me enough to ever suggest that he's going to be a guy that hits 290, has an OPS that flirts in the high 700s, 800, and you're like, wow, he's arrived. Like, he may have it in him, but he has not shown us that. At least not in long enough stretches to really buy in. I don't think he's a 210 hitter, though, either. Like, I don't think he's this bad. So, you know, it kind of just remains to be seen, but they do need more out of him independent of where he's hitting in the lineup. But the guy, and the reason I kind of come with this take about it's not so much the players individually, it's about how they fit, is that I'm not a hater. Like, I want these guys as individuals to find success. Like, why wouldn't I? I look at Alec Boehm, and like, this is where I think I have to have some self-awareness. Like, I want to rip my hair out watching Alec Boehm. And like, over the last 30 days, Alec Boehm is hitting 323. He has a 358 on base percentage. He has an 833 OPS. He's been very good. And he's done a solid job at third base, I will say. Like, a couple plays in Toronto he made this week. Not saying he's a Gold Glover. He's not a top 10 defensive third baseman in the league. But like, nice job, Alec. Like, I see it. Like, good stuff.
You mean he's not elite, Bob?
No, we had a conversation with our former boss, Kyle Stott, as you may know him, and he was doing this deep StatCast dive into how Alec Boehm is an elite defender at third base, and I thought he was like messing with us, and it was too early in the day to say that he was drinking, so I had to like exit the conversation. I was getting angry, like, and I don't even know like what searches he kept trying to like take these screenshots of like Baseball Savant. And I'm like, that's not even right. Like, I don't know what you're searching to get that result, but it's not even correct.
Anyway, the best part about it is he starts that conversation with you, and you got so fed up you included.
I had to bring you in. I'm like, I can't do this one-on-one. Here you go, Anthony. Like, enjoy. Nice job. But here's the thing. Again, like, how can you kill a guy for hitting 323 over 30 games? You can't, right? But I just find it so immensely frustrating because what they need is a right-handed bat that can do real damage and not be a singles hitter. And like, it's not Alec Boehm's fault. It's just that in the fit of this lineup, they need him to be something different than what he is. And that's what drives me crazy about it. I'm not ripping my hair out at Alec Boehm anymore. I'm ripping my hair out about the fit of Alec Boehm in this current lineup.
Yeah, and the funny thing is you talk about those numbers, which are really good numbers, right? And I can't pull it up. Maybe you can grab it off your phone because I texted it as part of that exchange with Kyle. That you talked about his numbers as how he's played over the last month or whatever. It's really good, right? You look at those numbers, and on the surface, those would sound like good numbers. Anybody would take those numbers, right? 323, 358 on base, 833 OPS. Of course, if over a course of a full season, you take that out of a player. Those are pretty great numbers. Except, what did they pan out to over the course of the year with doubles, home runs, and RBI? I don't remember the exact numbers, but I texted it out to you. Like, they're really low numbers.
Yeah, this was on Wednesday morning. If you extrapolate this out, over 162 games, he'd finished with 26 doubles, 19 home runs, and 68 RBIs. That's since April 15th, in which he's hitting 323 with an 831 OPS. Like,
yeah.
That's taking the best of Alec Boehm. not counting those first few weeks. The best about Bohm, you're still talking about less than 20 home runs, 26 doubles. Like, it's not an impact bat.
Correct.
And you want the guy to be an impact bat as a corner infielder, especially when your second baseman's not hitting, especially when you have a total black hole out in center field and you have a platoon player in Max Kepler who can't even hit right-handed pitching. And then again, to finish the thought about the imperfect construction, like, here comes Nick Castellanos. In what world would you ever complain about Nick Castellanos hitting 285, 755 OPS? Like, yes, he is not what you thought you were going to get when you signed him. But knowing what Nick Castellanos has been now since he's been here, dude's hitting 285. He's cutting down on his strikeouts. He's still doing enough as a complimentary piece. But again, because this lineup is what it is, and if Schwarber's not Babe Ruth in a given moment, or Harper's not playing an MVP level, it feels a little bit short of what you need. And it all plays, I'm telling you, it all plays off of one another. Like, Castellanos is a little bit short of expectation, especially because Bohm can't drive the baseball. Bohm matters more because Stott's not giving you anything offensively. Then you ping the left and center field, and you're not getting enough out of that. Like, and then
if you were getting, and this is one thing I was going to say, if you were getting the Alec Bohm that you had for the first half of last season with regularity, Nick Castellanos' numbers would be absolutely perfect for this lineup because he's your 5-6 hitter. He's doing what 5-6 hitters are supposed to do. Like, and because Bohm would be the next guy beyond the Turner, Harper, Schwarber group. So Castellanos as your fifth option, as your fifth best hitter, is fine. But right now, he's not. He's supposed to be your fourth best. He's actually your fourth best hitter, and those numbers are slightly low for your fourth best hitter in this lineup, right? So, like, that's the difference. Like, one guy can make another guy's numbers look better or worse, even if that guy's doing what is the. And Castellanos, let's be fair, has been incredibly consistent now for over a year.
Yeah,
like this is what the new Nick Castellanos is, and he's been a 285 hitter for over a year now. And that's fine. And the power's down slightly. The doubles are down slightly.
I think if Bohm or Castellanos was doing damage from the right side, you would look at the numbers of the other guy more favorably. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
But when you have two guys that are sitting in the middle of your order or the back of the middle of your order who are singles hitters and they are a little bit limited in terms of their base running and what they bring to the table and their overall skill set, it's not a great fit. And I don't want to belabor the point, but that's where I've really landed on all of this. And then you obviously kick it out to center field. And I know I actually got some DMs about the center field update sound drop that we introduced on Monday. So it's time for the Phillies center field update. Here we are. I mean, since May 1st, Johan Rojas. Thank you, Phil's Tailgate on X for pulling this. Johan Rojas, since May 1st, 45 at-bats, 8 hits, no doubles, no homers, 5 runs batted in, 5 walks, 14 strikeouts. He's hitting 178 with a 260 on-base percentage and a 267 slugging percentage.
But he had that triple in the 9th inning against Milwaukee.
People forget. Brandon Marsh, since May 1st, not bad. 65 at-bats, 19 hits, 5 doubles, 1 home run, 7 runs batted in, 10 walks. Hitting 292 with a 387 on-base percentage, 415 slug. That's a little bit over 800 in terms of his OPS. The other night, baseball out in the gap. Nick Gable's pitching his butt off. No margin for error. Need a center fielder to make a play. A ball that had a 150 expected batting average on it. Marsh doesn't get great jumps. Didn't really get a great jump on this ball. Maybe he was a little bit thrown off by Max Kepler. Sure, whatever. Ball's in his glove, doesn't make the play, run scores, Phillies end up losing the game. You got to fix it. You can't do this anymore. You can't do it anymore.
Well, so here's the question, Bob. Are we going to get an update again about Lehigh Valley? So last night, Justin Crawford is 3 for 3 in the game. It's upped his batting average, I think, to 343 now for the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. And they pulled him in the 5th inning of the game. Now, there was any number of reasons that he could have been pulled. He could have been pulled because they're going to call him up. He could have been pulled because it's a blowout and they don't want him to risk anything. And there was somebody did say that they saw him stretching out his quad at one point, so it could have just been completely precautionary, right? Could have been any number of reasons that he gets pulled at that point. Is it time to go to Justin Crawford? And here's the reason I ask this, because I'll be honest with you. You look at his numbers, right? He's still hitting the ball into the ground way too much. And this is at AAA. So what's it going to be like up in the major league level? It's probably going to be worse, right? But is it worth bringing him now? Give him a month, see how he adapts to Major League Baseball, and then you have a determination as you go into the deadline. Okay, do we have the guy internally? Is he going to be able to come in and be this midseason rookie who we can play out there and do a good job for us? Or do we now have to go out and get someone? That's the only reason I would look at it and say, do it now. Otherwise, I would rather let him continue to develop, because I don't necessarily, in my own personal opinion, don't think he's quite ready enough yet.
I agree. I think that it's so bad in center field that people are like, let's bring him up. And I love it. I'd rather people say, let's bring him up, than when Marsh doesn't make a play, say that's why Rojas needs to play more. Or when Rojas goes over next 10 with 8 strikeouts, people say, oh, that's why you got to go Marsh. Like, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to be on this show with you anymore and talk about these two guys. They are not good enough. They are not good enough. Marsh can hit a little bit. He can run around and be a corner outfielder. I'm not saying he's not a Major League Baseball player. He is not an everyday or 70% of the time center fielder. He's not good enough. He's certainly not good enough defensively. Johan Rojas cannot hit. He's not going to hit. He cannot hit. He is a liability. When you play better pitching, he will not hit. And you can sit here and say, well, if everyone else hits, then he doesn't have to. Like, stop it. That's enough. We've seen enough. Parts of 3 seasons, it's not getting better. He's not going to get better with more at-bats. He's not good enough. You have to do something here. Now, Justin Crawford, in my opinion, you look at the numbers and you're like, how do you not bring this guy up? How do you not? He's hitting 349, for God's sake. He's hitting over 300 against lefties. He's hitting over 400 against righties. Like, what are we doing? If not now, then when? What are you waiting to see? I have watched a lot of Justin Crawford, and I have seen all of the commentary about the ground ball rate. There are some real limitations right now that I think could hurt him at the major league level. Like, he does not hit the ball particularly hard, and it does not do so very consistently. Forget the fact that he only has 1 home run. You just see his singles are a lot of like dinks and dunks and flares, and there's a skill to that, hitting it where they're not, and he's hit it every single level. So I'm not as dismissive of the weak contact turning into base hits with him as I might be with other players over select samples. But I think that there is some limitation to his game. I don't think he's ready yet. I don't think that defensively he's necessarily ready from some of the reports that I've read. But when you have what you have up here right now, how do you make the case against not bringing it? Like, how do you make the case that this isn't good enough for us right now when you have what you have at this level? It's not perfect, and it may never be perfect. It might not be the right, oh my God, it all makes sense. Now is the time for Justin Crawford to come up. Everything is perfect. It's amazing. Sometimes it's like trial by fire. Like, let's just see. Because in reality, could it really be any worse? And that's not the best reason to do this. Like, you don't want to stunt prospects. You don't want to stunt development just because you have a deficiency. But you'd like to think that the guy has enough toughness that if he were to come up here for a 3-week run and struggle, that it wouldn't destroy his maturation. Like, you got to, at some point, have a little confidence in the human being, in the competitor.
So let me make a comparison to something that they did 3 years ago. And it was bringing up Bryson Stott, who may not have been ready, really ready, but they needed to see, can this kid come up here and give us more than what Didi Gregorius was giving us, right? And it was just, and it ultimately, Stott didn't hit that first year. He ended up, I think, he hit like 220 something, whatever. He didn't really hit, but he ended up being better than Didi Gregorius. And they decided, all right, that's what we're going to roll with here going into the postseason. This is going to be the guy that we go with. May not be perfect, may not be exactly what we want. He may not have completely reached his development point, but we need something better. And we're going to trade for a center fielder. We're going to trade for a relief pitcher. We don't want to give up more future to find a plug and play at shortstop. Let's give it a shot. I think you do the same thing here with Justin Crawford. Let's just see. And as long as he doesn't completely, go underwater, then maybe that's the solution. Maybe that's the answer.
I will repeat a point that I brought up on Monday, though. And I don't know, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but if the Phillies were in their evaluations of Crawford saying to themselves, this is a guy who is a high-profile prospect, who has been extremely productive at the minor league level, we have concerns about what he's going to be at the major league level. We just don't necessarily buy it. We would entertain trading him at the deadline. We do not want to expose him to a major league run in which he struggles immensely and thus takes some of the top off of his value as a trade prospect. Yep. And I know that that's a weird way to look at it, and it's a scared way to look at it. But if, and I'm not saying that they are, but if their internal evaluations are not that enthusiastic about him, that is why you don't bring him up. Because you say, we're going to try to unload this guy. We're going to try to use him in a meaningful trade. We don't want to expose him and expose his flaws at the major league level because Johan Rojas and Brandon Marsh aren't that good. We've rode it out to this point. Let's just do it for another 6 weeks. And that's why you don't do it. And that's the most compelling argument I can make against keeping him in the minor leagues at this point.
And I think it's very compelling. And I don't think it's scared at all, Bob. I honestly think it's 4D chess in a lot of ways, right? Like the most important evaluation that you do as a professional sports team is self-evaluate. And that, especially with your prospects and your minor leaguers and whatever level you're at, like that's the spot you really have to look and say, okay, like maybe we see something and we don't think that, as high as other evaluators do, but we're being honest with ourselves because we see this player every day and how they work every day and what their capabilities are, whereas these external evaluators are only seeing them a handful of times or 10 times or whatever. Like there's a big difference there. And being able to be honest with yourself about your own prospects and not fall in love with every single one of them is the most important thing to long-term success. And you might be right. And maybe that is ultimately, maybe the Phillies have decided that the guy that they are willing to move at the deadline to get them the biggest piece that they need is Justin Crawford. And if that's the case, they might be better off just letting him stay in Lehigh Valley, keep hitting 340, and everybody else be like, why the hell aren't the Phillies calling this guy up? They're stupid. We'll take him. We'll take him off your hands. And that maybe that makes the team better.
Yeah, and because the only other point that wasn't made in this whole conversation is that, yes, seemingly from a baseball standpoint, what he brings to the table would be an upgrade over what you're getting at the center field position right now. And oh, by the way, this team, and I know that we fall into doing this, and it feels cliche, and it's an oversimplification. I'm aware of it, but this team could use a little bit of a little jolt. The energy on this team is a little bit stale. And some of it is, look, it is the same group of players mostly since 22 to 23 to 24, now into 25. So we're all just accustomed to seeing what they do and how they perform. And it's not new and it's not exciting. But it just does feel like, to me, collectively, in terms of where they're at as a team, it feels like they could use a little bit of a different look. An injection of energy, just a fresh breath of a breath of fresh air, like just something a little bit different. And that's at the end of the day, not the thing that's killing the Phillies right now, but I do think that this team needs a little bit of a shake up to its DNA. And I think that they need a little bit of roster turnover in order to do that. And so that's just like one other thing out there in the distance about like, why not? Why not do it? Well, I think it might really come back to the evaluation of where he's at and how they feel about him in this moment. All right, look.
Hey, by the way, good work by you keeping that thing going as I deal with Central Pennsylvania wire
yeah.
phone service. right?
Yeah.
As we're driving
Well,
along
actually,
here, so.
on that note, I have to get out of here at the 10 o'clock hour. So if you want to
Yeah.
hit one last thing, we'll try to shut it down from there.
So one last thing is actually I'm going to give you credit for this one. And first of all, I feel like it's a mea culpa. I'm the one who needs to make an apology here. But I want to give you credit for it. And I'll have you can bring up the actual or talk about the actual tweet that you sent. But the Atlanta Braves are toast.
Yeah.
They're done. And what really made me kind of finally admit my mistake on that team is, I had said all along, just wait. They figured it out. They got off to a bad start, but they figured it out, got back to 500. And guess what? Strider and Acuna are coming. Well, Strider is not Strider right now. He's just not. Does not look right. Does not look good. He's off. Acuna's been fine. He's been really good since he's come back, but Strider is not. Then they lose Smith-Shawver, who was pitching really well for them, and nobody's hitting for that team. And the tweet you brought up was from Mark Bowman, right? The beat writer in Atlanta. Why don't you read what that is? Because that's the most fascinating thing.
This was before Wednesday's game. The Rockies have as many wins over the past 3 days as the Braves do over the past 17 days. And that was before they went out. And I guess they did win. Did they win? No. Did they? They lost both Tuesday and Wednesday, and then got swept, right?
Yes, the loss yesterday was
an all-timer.
An all-timer, giving up a 6-run lead in the 9th inning and losing to the Diamondbacks 11-10. So like that there's got to be, I think Brian Snitker's probably on the hottest of hot seats right now. I got to imagine there's going to be a change there. And I just don't see it. I just don't see them turning it around enough. They have more talent than some of the teams at the back end of the wild card race. And I could conceivably see, if Alex Anthopoulos, their general manager, decides to go out and make a couple of acquisitions, the team kind of sort of rallying and maybe getting back into it. But that's the very, very best case scenario for them. I think that I think they're cooked for this season anyway. For this season.
Real quick, just one thing here on some Mets hate. They go out to LA and they play a highly competitive series and split with the Dodgers. And I'd just like to point out that they faced Dustin May, Clayton Kershaw, Tony Gonsolin, and Landon Knack. Like, come on.
Come on.
Tell me when it's glass now, Yamamoto. Like, come on.
Yeah, and the 2 games that they lost, they're bullpen blue.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, these guys, it's coming for these guys. It was Reed Garrett yesterday.
Yeah, Reed Garrett yesterday.
Like unbelievable. And then earlier was Brazaban, right? He blew it the other game against the Dodgers. Like it's the day of reckoning is coming for that team. And you talk about a bad lineup. Lindor and Alonso are carrying that team right now.
Yeah.
And Lindor didn't play yesterday. Alonso was the only guy in the lineup with an OPS over 800. Even Juan Soto is below 800 at this. Could you imagine Juan Soto in Philadelphia hitting 227 with an OPS under 800? The city would be going bonkers right now. Yep. Bonkers.
All right. Well, get us out of here. You want me to do it, or you want to do it from the car?
No, I mean, it's easier for you because you can just read it, but I will see what I remember.
All right, go ahead.
Do this from the car.
I'll test you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Phightin Words. You can subscribe to Phightin Words wherever you get your podcast, whether that's on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, wherever you get your podcast. We're in every spot. But we prefer that you check us out on YouTube, right here on YouTube if you're watching us live. YouTube.com/@Phightin Words for those of you in the podcast feed. If you want to find us, and when you get to YouTube, subscribe to the show, ring the bell. Every time we go live, you'll get an alert on your phone or your computer letting you know that Bob and I are ready to talk Phillies baseball. So for Bob Wankel, I am Anthony SanFilippo saying thanks for tuning in to Phightin Words. Have a great weekend, everyone. And by the way, because I have to make my prediction, Phillies win 2 out of 3 in Pittsburgh.
All right, we're back.
All right, we're back. Yeah, and have a great weekend, and we will check in with you on Monday.